Good morning, or maybe it's good afternoon where you are across the world. Um, my name is Peggy Alwell, and I'm the Plant Conservation and Restoration Program Lead for the Bureau of Land Management. And that is a federal government agency that manages almost 140 million hectares of land, which constitutes about 10% of the US land mass. So today I have been asked to see or seed the future for the National Seed Strategy. So hopefully you've all heard or listened to the previous talks in this session on the various parts of the National Seed Strategy, on the partnerships that have been built with the National Seed Strategy implementation and the progress that's been made, and also seen what a really great example the Mid-Atlantic Seed Bank is. Here in the United States, we are preparing for a changing world. We are entering an era of weather and climate disasters that are more frequent and more costly. Since 1980, there have been nearly 300 disasters that cost at least $1 billion each. And all of those totaled over $1.9 trillion in damages. An amount and a frequency of events that have never been imagined. We're also preparing for a political change here in the United States with the President Biden's administration. President Biden has issued an executive order 14008, which is tackling the climate crisis at home and abroad. So he is addressing foreign and domestic policy through this executive order. However, I'm going to be focused on the domestic policy or the domestic aspect of this executive order. And why is that important and how can it be monumental? Federal government agencies make up 28% of the US land mass. We can have an effect on many hectares of those lands. All of the federal land managing agencies make up about 260 million hectares of land. So we can use the government's buying power and asset management to address climate change. We are in the process of developing climate action plans to improve adaptation and increase resiliency. We are empowering workers through rebuilding our infrastructure for a sustainable economy. And what I want folks to think about in this is that we have nature-based solutions. In my book, plants are the true green infrastructure. We're to advance conservation, agriculture, and reforestation. We are to revitalize energy communities, and we are to secure environmental justice and spur economic opportunity for those marginalized communities of people. It's a very powerful executive order, and the reach is fairly large. So this is a quote that just resonated with me recently. Shalonda Young is the acting director of Office of Management and Budget. And she talks about this moment of crisis is also a moment of possibilities. And I'd like for us to dwell on the possibilities aspect. And this moment of crisis, whether it's COVID-19, whether it's the climate crisis or the extinction crisis, I want us all to think about what the possibilities are that we have, that we can do to turn this climate crisis and this extinction crisis around. So what I'd like to do today is to tell you about my restoration dream for the US. If I was queen for the day, what would I do? I would develop national policy for the use of native plants. We need the next generation of policies to address the ecological crisis at hand. We need to build up the botanical, the ecological expertise to do large landscape level restoration that is going to build that resilient ecosystems out there on the landscape. I would also develop a national seed and restoration center with a business plan. And I would use the business plan that we developed for the National Seed Strategy as a way to look at what it would cost us to develop this center. When we've spoken previously about this National Seed Strategy, we wanted to imagine what success would look like. And in my version of success for the National Seed Strategy, it looks like a nationwide network of collectors to collect seed, researchers to develop seed, farmers to grow seed, nurseries and seed storage facilities to supply native seed, and then an adequate supply of restoration ecologists who know how to put the right seed in the right place at the right time. So this is my dream of how a National Seed and Restoration Center would work, and how it would work to address the native plant materials development process from wildland seed collection in the upper left-hand corner all the way around to restoration of resilient ecosystems. The mission of this center would be to serve as the scientific, logistical, and support center for the restoration of the nation's native ecosystems on public land. And further, because I think we can all help each other, but I think it's the power of the government's purse and the reach of the government that we can use to make it possible to have an effect across public and private sector lands. What would the structure look like? I can envision it would be a national campus with regional hubs, because our plants are regional in scope. We want to use the locally adapted, genetically appropriate native seed. And so you'd have a national campus and you'd have regional hubs across the country. They would be interagency or interinstitutional partners. We have been working with the Plant Conservation Alliance, which is 12 federal agencies and over 400 partners. And those folks have been helping to implement the National Seed Strategy, as you've seen in the past. We could also use university and botanic gardens who've got students that are just graduating as a civilian climate corps. So there is a nexus between what we need to do to build a restoration economy. And then components would support the native plant materials development process. And that's what I want to go through now in a pretty quick fashion, just to give you a taste of what I'm thinking about. And this is not just me thinking about it. I've talked to a lot of people about this, so I'm getting ideas from a cadre. So, seeding the future. What would this interagency seed and restoration center begin with? We've got to begin with the seed collections, wildland seed collections. So we would expand Seeds of Success program across the nation. We would establish extension experts that have seed cleaning and seed extraction skills, so that when we come up with some of these restoration species that nobody's really worked with, we have folks that understand what are the material or the machines and the materials you need to use to get that seed out without killing it. We would establish seed preserves on federal lands and in any other areas that people are willing to use. And we want them in areas of high temperature and low precipitation across the range of the species, because these are the seed that we may need in the future that are drought tolerant and exist and have evolved in these higher temperature areas. We would partner with universities and botanic gardens to get that scientific foundation for seed-based restoration, seed science, genetics, how you grow the species. There's a tremendous amount of information we do not know. We would create scholarships and jobs for historically marginalized communities of people. We would expand the national and regional seed research priorities for commercial development of seed. We would expand national seed increase via what we're doing right now in the Bureau of Land Management, seed production contracts. We would create additional seed production contracts, partnering with those historically marginalized communities of farmers and growers that we haven't engaged with in the past. And to help do that, we would establish a farmer liaison program in various parts of the country in these different hubs, so that we are talking directly to the farmers that we need to be helping us grow the seed. We would establish seed testing units. We don't have protocols for all of the native seed for seed testing. We would also establish additional seed certification units working, and this is working with state agencies. This is not all us doing it, it's working in collaboration. We would expand seed storage facilities to include environmentally controlled conditions for foundation seed and then to store seed. And we would establish a cadre of restoration ecologists to develop science-based restoration. We'd have demonstration sites, and we would have a web presence that would share protocols and training courses and all the lessons that are learned. Now, seeing and seeding the future globally. I think that native plants are the true green infrastructure, so we need to firmly establish the nexus between climate change crisis and the national seed strategy. We are in the process of conducting a national assessment, and we need to use the results of that assessment to inform version 2.0 of the seed strategy. And we also need to include the business plan for the seed strategy in the seed strategy. I think we need to communicate the importance of the strategy, collaborate across partners, and avoid duplication of effort. There's plenty of work for everyone. We need to educate the policymakers and the funders. And then I would like to see us fully implement the National Seed Strategy by establishing a Center of Excellence, National Interagency Seed and Restoration Center. We are working together across the United States to implement the National Seed Strategy, but we have a lot more to do. We can work and learn from our partners across the globe who are facing the same challenges that we are. Together, we can make this moment of crisis a moment of possibilities and realities for restoring resilient ecosystems throughout the world. Thank you for your interest in restoration, and I want to acknowledge my colleagues that helped develop this program.